right, well, welcome everybody to a very special and wonderful occasion. The true legend, Richard Bartle, has agreed to speak with us today on Second Life and about his work. Indeed, I welcome him. He is really the father of us all in many ways, and we carry certainly his DNA imprint with us in all that we do.
My apologies.
No, we're lucky. We're lucky for that. I met you in November of 2003 at the first State of Play conference and have been a great admirer of yours for your intellect, your passion, your drive for the virtual platform, and your great book, Designing Virtual Worlds, is a Bible for those who do and for those who populate them. Thank you very much for coming today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, yes, all right. Well, I would like to know something about the young Richard. Have you always been creative?
It depends what you mean by creative. Yeah, I've always made things, written things, yeah. But some things I'm not actually very good at. I mean, I'm not very good at drawing, so I'm not that kind of creative. Not very good at playing musical instruments, so I'm not that kind of creative, but I'm pretty good at writing, and I'm pretty good at game design, so yeah, I'm that kind of creative. Programming, yeah.
What was an early memory you have of creating something and you thought, this is really neat, I can do this?
Oh, I never think that things that I've created are really neat, or that my creating anything's really neat. I mean, that would be kind of like an arrogance that that I don't have.
Just something that you like. Just something that you like. We could please ourselves.
Things that I like. It's not so much the end result as the actual making it that's
of course,
that's the fun. I don't make things that I especially want to experience when I've made them. It's the making it that's the fun part. Yeah, it's like, I mean, if you you don't want to write a book in order to read it. You write a book because you want to write a book.
Sure. Okay, great, the journey. And so what were you thinking when you figured out how to do this with the muds?
Okay, well, it wasn't just me, I have to say. I often get said that, you know, I'm like the grandfather or something, but no, there was me and there was Roy Trubshaw, and he's the one who did all the the groundwork in the technical area, the actual making of the pieces of software that started to communicate. I came in a bit later and made it into a world, a place. So it's not just me. So what was I thinking when I started working on it? Well, I saw the power. I knew straight away what we had. We had a way where to make places where people could go and be and become themselves. I mean, that for me it was always a thing about freedom. I always wanted people to be able to be free to be themselves.
It's a great gift to give someone.
Well, it's also very selfish, though, isn't it? Because it's me wanting. I mean, there's a thin line between somebody who gives something to somebody else and hates it, and somebody who gives something to somebody else and likes it. I mean, in some ways, the person who hates giving to somebody else is actually being more honest, because they're doing it for the other person. They're not doing it in order to get some warm, fuzzy feeling inside. Now, I was just trying to make some. I mean, I was kind of raging against the way that the world was, particularly in Britain at the time, and it's now as well, where you're not so much who you are as who other people perceive you to be, and who they perceive you to be is based in a lot on where you come from, what your background is, what your schools you went to, what your accent's like, things like that. And I didn't want any of that. I wanted to be able to be me without having other people coming along and making judgments. And and because I was annoyed at all this, that's why MUDs were always for me a thing of freedom. That's why I wanted to make them places where all this could be left behind, could throw it away, ignore it. You know, as little of reality as you need, because the more reality you bring in, the more that you're stuck with the same things that you've got in holding you back in reality.
People's own limitations are also what hold other people back. In other words, how someone is limited, that's how they perceive you.
A lot of constraints are on people make self-imposed constraints, yes. People will not behave in certain ways because they feel that they shouldn't. Social convention or some social norm that is stopping you, then, well, you're perpetuating the change.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now, obviously, if you come in and start doing things that annoy other people within a world, then, well, there are new social constraints and new boundaries that you shouldn't cross. But these are things that you can learn without having all the baggage that you've had to bring with you from reality.
And in fact, in a text-based world, no one can even hear your voice.
Well, back then, yes. Back then they couldn't hear your voice. They couldn't. Some of the text-based worlds.
Classify you just on that.
Yeah, we wouldn't have even had gender in MUD if it hadn't been for the way that the English language demanded it. It was a place where if you wanted to be a pirate, then you just walked around acting like a pirate. It wasn't as if you had to come in and select some pirate off the shelf or something. You could be what you wanted to be.
And of course, in that freedom, you find out a great deal about yourself, don't you? It's not like real life because you have that freedom.
Well, yeah, you can. I mean, in real life, you can find a lot out about yourself and about other people, but it takes a long time, and there's no backspace. I mean, if people go into a virtual world and they screw up, then they can come in again as a new character, clean sheet, and start again. And many times I've seen that happen, and people who were complete jerks to start with have grown to be among our best players. In the real world, if you screw up, then it's very difficult to reboot. It's things that you've done will follow you. Yeah. So that's why virtual worlds are... they give you things that you don't have in the real world. I mean, you can in the real world find out what you're really made of, but I mean, personally, I don't fancy joining the army and getting shot at to see how I would behave under pressure. I'd much rather find out in relative safety.
And you are in a safe space. You know, within that virtual world or virtual environment, you have created a place of safety from which you can experiment out.
Yes, although, I mean, because it's actually the fact that these virtual worlds are virtual doesn't mean that there isn't a reality to them. They are part of the real world. What happens is people have a conceit, a belief that they wish to
the reward is
to force themselves to believe that it's separate, because in so doing they get these extra benefits.